On today's Monday News Pod, the San Diego Padres are back, as they've been many times, back at 500 after winning the first two games against the Braves of this 4-game set, thanks to the offense showing up big time, Matt Waldron having a nice splendid little performance, and then the ageless wonder, Mr. Yu Darvish, kicking butt and taking names, as well as today, we'll be answering some of your questions and comments as always. So, let's get into it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, May 20th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiipeno. You might be familiar with my baseball-related work at Just Baseball, where I'm actually going to be writing about Yu Darvish this week, so look forward to that, as well as you can check out at @LO_Padres. You can also check out my newest show, Baseball versus the World, for general baseball silliness, with tomorrow's episode being about just fun baseball movie scenes. But today, guys, it's Padres time, folks, and we got a lot to talk about, and here's the thing, man. This Padres team is just so funny in so many ways. Like, the entire season has been this tug of war between mediocrity and genuinely exciting games. I still stand by, even before my rant and some of the developments that happened against the Rockies, that I do stand by that this team is clearly not what it was last year. And now, don't get me wrong, that could still mean an end result of like 82 wins and maybe missing the playoffs, but it is definitely a different team. It doesn't have the same exact loser energy that they had all of last year. It has it in bits and spurts, don't get me wrong, but this weekend showed what they're capable of. And if you caught my episode on Friday, which I posted a little bit late, apologies for that. We recorded it that Friday morning, with Locked On Braves host Jake Mastriani, we talked about this series, and I talked about how the Padres have been so inconsistent, it just depends which version of them show up. And this weekend, the good version showed up. And on that podcast, I said I literally would not be afraid, or I would not be surprised. I'm sorry, afraid. I would not be surprised if the Padres swept the Braves. I really wouldn't be. And I know that sounds crazy, but I really wouldn't be, because they've beaten the Dodgers this year. They've beaten, the D-backs pretty bad this year. They've beaten so many contending teams, and now the Braves, that it's a really good start. And, today, by the time everyone's listening to this episode, we've got a 2-game, doubleheader to make up for, there was supposed to be a third game, obviously. So weird. Monday news podcast that I'm only recapping 2 games. So that's weird. But one was postponed, of course. Saturday game. And it's so funny. I don't know about you guys, but it's just funny that we've complained about the Padres all year, and then I was sad that their game was postponed. It's like, make up your mind. I'm being hypocritical. But let's begin with the simple thing. Let's start with the pitching matchups. First of all, Yu Darvish, man. Just what we talked about before the season. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything. One of the things I talked about in this podcast was, fundamentally, I really thought that Yu Darvish's entire thing was health. You look at some of his numbers, his xFIP, his field independent pitching, all that sort of stuff was lower than his ERA last year. So my thing was, at worst, he's going to be just a really solid starter. Maybe he's a mid to high 3 ERA guy. And that's still helpful in this rotation that what I thought would have a nice, season from Joe Musgrove, would have hopefully something good for Michael King, which we've seen has been really hit or miss this year, and then Dylan Cease. So my thing was, if Darvish can just stay healthy, then that'd be great. And so far, he's been more than that. And I think that that's what's so awesome about Yu Darvish this year. And it's what's made the Padres a lot more dynamic, and what makes them exciting if they do make the playoffs is you've got 2 genuine guys that you trust and have a big game in them. Lord, hey, if the Padres play the Dodgers in the playoffs, they won't tell you this, but the Dodgers fans don't want to see Yu Darvish. Guys, let's be honest. They just don't want to see them. But if they saw some other teams, I do think, and I think I said this on Thursday's podcast, that it doesn't make sense, but I think that the Padres have a better chance to win the World Series than make the playoffs. I know it makes no sense, but I really think they have big games in them. And Yu Darvish had as big a game as you could have. 7 innings, only 2 hits, 0 earned runs. He did walk 1, but he struck out 9 across 99 pitches. His ERA on the season now sits at 2.08 with a whip of 0.9. He's even better than his best season with the Padres so far, which was 2 years ago when he was, I don't know if he was actually named an All-Star that year, which is hilarious and shows you, by the way, that All-Star selections aren't always all-encompassing. But He was excellent. Absolutely excellent in this game. And don't get me wrong, the Braves batters this year, as we also talked with Jake about on Friday, haven't been on. Ronald Acuna, who also makes an error in this game, dropping a ball very similar to the error that Tatis made in the first week and a half of the season, where he just straight up dropped a ball that was hit towards him. Matt Olson has been underperforming. Michael Harris the third has been underperforming. Is it the third or the second? My apologies. Michael Harris, I don't want to make sure I get it. It's the second. My apologies. Orlando Arcia hasn't been very good this year. Ozzy Albies has been okay. They've just had a lot of underperformers, and it's really cool to see and be reminded, guys, the Padres aren't the only team, right, with players that haven't really stepped up, that you expect to step up. But they still showed up here, and I think that with Yu Darvish, first of all, amazing repertoire through the slider a lot, through the four-seam fastball, sinker, knuckle curve, sweeper, curveball, splitter, cutter. I think what's made him so good this year is a couple things. Number one is health, right? That's number one. Number two, I think, is that he's been really good, I think, at mixing up what his put-away pitch is. Obviously, slider and four-seam fastball are his go-to, but what I really like about him is that he's been a little bit more unpredictable in that regard, and he's changed up his pitch mix just a little bit there. He's gotten back to slider being his number one pitch. Basically, every year of his career, or at least a lot of years of his career, the slider has kind of been something that's been his most dominant pitch. And last year he went away from it a little bit. He went more towards a sweeper sinker combination, which was fine, but batters just weren't having it, right? And his slider really wasn't working last year. 432 batting average against it. But also expected batting average 346. So yes, don't get me wrong, Yu Darvish wasn't awful last year, but I still think that health is what determines if he's going to be good or not. And this year, when healthy, he hasn't just been good. He's been one of the best pitchers in the National League. And I think that one thing that's what makes him so interesting, on top of the pitch mix, on top of the fact that this is a guy who still has a good fastball velocity, and it's the same, more or less, as what he had back in 2014, right? He's aging really well. And a big thing about that, which I talked about in the preseason, the guy works hard, right? This is a guy, and I said this when the contract was signed, and I still stand by my opinion that I still have some issues with the contract that kind of don't have anything to do with Darvish, by the way. Just my general take that I don't understand how you have Soto and you gave money to everyone on the team except for him before you figured that out. But whatever. Darvish works hard, man. He works hard. He's a tinkerer, sometimes to his detriment. I recommend everyone read Andy McCullough did it wasn't a profile piece on Darvish. It was a profile, but he didn't actually speak to him. A piece on him and everyone who knows him, and just talking about how much of a tinkerer he is, how hard he works. And I think stuff like that makes a difference, especially for a player like him. There's only 4 starters in the league that are of his age or older, and he's just continuing to deal. And I said at the time, if someone can age gracefully, it's him. Now, of course, injuries can still happen. This is not, we don't know that he's going to be like this for the next 4 years, whatever it is, right? But what we do know is if he's healthy, this guy's going to go out there and he's going to perform. And that's what he did against a team that I thought was due. I talked about also on Friday, so this is a mistake on my part. I thought he could be due. Braves offense is due. And also he has a really low home run fly ball rate this year at 4.1%. Right? That's really, 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 really low. Right? So that tells you, okay, at some point he's going to give up some home runs. It might happen soon, frankly. So just be aware of that because of the hard hit contact that he gives up, which has been the case of his whole career, that he can give up some really hard contact if those pitches hang a little bit, if batters are actually able to make contact, which is what's so hard with Darvish because he has so many different pitches. And especially with the home run fly ball being as low as it was. There was a couple hits from Olson in this game that looked off the bat that I was like, wait, there it is. Still hasn't happened yet. Hopefully it doesn't, and hopefully if it does, it happens against a team that isn't very good, and it's just 3 runs on 3 home runs against the Marlins, and the Padres scored so much runs that it doesn't matter. So hopefully that happens, but can't say enough about Yu Darvish. He's been absolutely excellent, more than making up for at least Joe Musgrove's poor starts, by the way, who, by the way, will be back Tuesday. Cannot wait to see how he comes off because, hey, if it's anything like Darvish, my lord. Right? If it's anything like the way Darvish came off the IL, which he has not given up a run, and he hasn't given up more than 3 hits in any of the 4 starts he's had since coming off the IL. That's crazy, guys. That's crazy. He's been absolutely on fire. He is going sicko mode. The Avengers have assembled. Whatever catchphrase you want to use, that's what Yu Darvish has been so far this year. And even, by the way, before the IL, he was still a decent starter. Like, I really do think he was decent even before that. But now he's really caught his stride. He loves pitching against the Dodgers, and I know he's amped, and hopefully it continues. But of course, guys, that wasn't all that happened. We're going to recap just a little bit more, talking about a little bit of the offense, and then talking about Friday's game, which was a little bit different than this one, but the Padres still won, so that is good news, guys. But before we do that, of course, let's talk about a couple things, folks. Namely, I want to talk to you guys about some money stuff. Oh, yeah. And I mean important money stuff, ladies and gentlemen. And this one, it's life insurance, folks. Oh, yeah. It is exactly as important as it sounds, ladies and gentlemen. With life insurance, that's something that you want to check off your to-do list, right? You don't want to leave that for the last minute. And with Policy Genius, they've got you covered. It's time you save some dang money. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million worth of coverage. Some options also offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. And what I also really like it is that they've got this way of basically you can compare against other top companies, and they have their own team of licensed experts to help guide you through this whole thing. If you're like a schmuck like me who knows nothing about, frankly, life, and certainly not insurance, I'll tell you that much, but they really have you covered, and you can easily compare all the quotes from different insurers all across the country and find the lowest price that works for you. So there you go. And be careful, because it's tough out here sometimes. You don't want this to happen if you like lose your job or anything like that happens. So go check out Policy Genius so they can help you out. Check off life insurance off of your life to-do list, folks. PolicyGenius.com/LockedOnMLB, or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. Remember, that's PolicyGenius.com/LockedOnMLB. But folks, we're not done. Oh, no, not just yet. I got to talk to you about another thing that has to do with money, ladies and gentlemen. Everything has to do with money, but this really has to do with money. And in this case, it's the nitty gritty. You know how I look at Fangraphs and all that? You know how I'm looking at Baseball Savant and Baseball Reference? Well, folks, Yahoo Finance, those are the nerds that are going to help you out, man. What can I say? It's fantastic. On top of the fact that it's Yahoo. You guys all know Yahoo. You've heard of them before. But you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio. And look, I'm not very good at this stuff, but with Yahoo Finance, they kind of let you get straight to the point. You want to grow your portfolio? Well, they want to help you grow it as well, folks. And what I really like about them is that they've been in the game for a very long time, over 25 years. They've been the brand behind every great investor, and they give you everything. Independent research, customizable charts. Again, they really are like the Fangraphs, like for baseball nerds, right? That's what they got you. Breaking news coverage, different opinion pieces that they've got you, like that'll be in the, in the Yahoo Finance app, all that sort of stuff. They've got a bunch of different interviews with industry experts, financial news cycle stuff, taking a look at all those things, breaking down what you need to know and what's actually important and what's just smoke and mirrors, analyst ratings, and so much more, folks. So go check it out over at Yahoo Finance, guys, for comprehensive financial news and analysis. Visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the #1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. Go check it out. And just like that, folks, we are back on the Locked On Padres podcast. Your team every day, free and available on all the platforms. You can say hi to Pac-Man and Tatis on YouTube as well if you'd like to see my silly face. Not rocking anything impressive this time, just a Superman shirt that's been really like grained out a little bit, but I kind of like that it's been grained out. You know what else I like? I like that the Padres offense showed up in a big way in this game. Don't get me wrong, the Braves did make a couple errors. I mentioned the Acuna one. It was a little bit weird. There was a couple of clumsy little hits that the Padres got in this one, but still 14 hits is 14 hits and 9 runs is 9 runs. And especially, by the way, it's worth pointing out, the Padres also had 13 hits in Friday's game, which we'll get into in a second. And then that only amounted to 3 runs. So I'll take it. I'm just taking runs at this point. Highlights of this game, though. Fernando Tatis Jr. kind of was the one that opened the floodgates. I know it didn't actually like totally go that way, but he hits a double, ended up turning into a triple. Originally, they called Luis Ariz out at home plate, and then they review it. I was surprised that they changed it to him being safe. I think he might have been. I'm just not used to if you're the away team and the call is close. I feel like they usually just keep the call on the field, which is something that I don't entirely disagree with doing. But that's not all, of course. It wasn't just Tatis with that. He does strike out twice, by the way. Again, Tatis has been very, I don't know. It's just every time I think he's about to go nuclear, it just doesn't happen. And I think that, yes, I understand that he's hit the ball hard and he's still going to be a great player, but the MVP 2021, 2020, even 2019 level of Tatis just hasn't really been there consistently. And it seems like low and outside stuff has really been getting him this year. You know, some sinkers, stuff like that outside. It seems like he swings at them. He had a couple of bad plate appearances in this game. But bottom line, though, the Padres offense delivered. And it started, of course, I started with Tatis, but it started with Jake Cronenworth, who ripped one. Just absolutely ripped one off of Bryce Elder. Jackson Merrill also got a single in the first inning. We got that Tatis double that turned into a triple. Jackson Profar had a double in this game. Even Bogaerts got in the action a little bit. He went 1-for-4, but he did have a sac fly, which was nice. Luis Campusano with the hardest hit ball of the entire night, though, which I know, crazy. Again, Campusano. I love this man. The Campusano hive has never been stronger. 109.1 miles per hour exit velocity, 900 expected batting average, 27 out of 30 ballparks. It was a home run. Absolutely mashed it. I don't care if they were up by a lot. I just like seeing that. And it's funny that Bogaerts, once again, second hardest hit of the day goes to Xander Bogaerts. And the fourth hardest hit of the day goes to Xander Bogaerts, the sac fly. The second hardest was his single that happened in the first inning. Look, we still need more, but I do like, and I talked about this last week, that one, he's got a little bit of a new bat that has a little bit of a knob that I believe Mookie Betts uses, that I was told. And apparently it helps people who have a little bit of a wrist, sort of hand related injuries, or they just need a little bit of tension relief from there. And he's been hitting the ball harder lately. And I think that's worth bringing up. I really do. Now, don't get me wrong. I still want more from the guy. He's still been really struggling. And we're all really frustrated with him. And believe me, I talked about that last week. But I'm just saying, he's been hitting the ball harder. And for me, look, guys, I'm not like a master of numbers. That's what I bring other people on, and that's why I read other smart people. But hard hit rate is usually a great place to start. And for a guy who's been struggling like him, a guy who's had his hard hit rate decrease each of the last two seasons, that could mean that maybe things are changing, at least just a little bit. So shouts to Xander Bogaerts. Hopefully that goes. But the offense didn't end there. Ha-Seong Kim, he hits a home run in the top of the seventh to make it 9-0. And aside from a single from Ozzie Albies that unfortunately they score off of Stephen Kolek, he's one of the only ones that needs to improve a lot, I think, in the bullpen. I think it's possible that they may bring up someone else at some point. We'll have to see. I don't know. Alec Jacob is someone. Heck, Kevin Kopps could be someone, and if he performs a little bit better in the minors, I do think that he might be one that's replaced at some point. But still, it's okay. That's kind of a moot point when it comes to the discussion. Really great offensive performance overall from the Padres in this game. A lot of hard hit balls. Jackson Profar, another great game. He actually gets subbed out later on for Jose Azocar. Good defensive replacement. Padres have done that a lot this year when they have like a sizable lead. Take out Profar if you're already winning by a lot. Put in Azocar for the extra defense out there. They've done that a lot this year, and it's always been pretty good. But Profar in this game, 3-for-4 with a double and an RBI, and why not a walk too? He's just, guys, I don't know, man. I just don't know. I don't know. Even in the Rockies series, when the Padres didn't perform, he hit. Even when he didn't hit, last series before that against the Dodgers, Max Muncy robbed him of like 2 hits. I don't know, man. It's just, it's the stuff of legends. It really is. Like, I think someone on Twitter, at M. Parker, tweeted like, we would be 0-27 if Jackson Profar wasn't on this team, or 0-47, which, I mean, it does feel like that, right? Like, you've basically had Tatis return a little bit to form, Cronenworth be back to form, and outside of that, you know what I mean? And then you've had the Profar thing, which has just been a revelation. I don't know what's going to happen this offseason if he keeps this up. Like, truly, I don't know what I would do with a player like this. But guys, that wasn't the only game. I forgot. I've spent a lot of time talking about this one. Let's quickly talk about Friday's game. There wasn't too much to report here, in my opinion, but Manny Machado does get an RBI in this game, which was nice. Jake Cronenworth and Jackson Profar as well. Profar goes 2-for-4 in this one with an RBI. And then 2 walks from Tatis, which I did like to see, 1-for-3 on the night. Cronenworth 3-for-5 with an RBI. Machado, not a great game, but he does get a sack at one point, and he does steal a base, which I like to see. Xander Bogaerts 2-for-4 with 2 stolen bases, by the way, in Friday's game. Again, showing some signs of life. I think for a player like him, and Machado too, they're at the point where I just want to see some signs of life. Then we can start talking about, okay, now they can contribute. They've been so bad that like I just want to make sure that they're like that they can still hit, frankly. Right? Like that's kind of where I'm at with this Padres team. I just want to be sure that those guys can still play baseball on some level, right? So we'll see how that all transpires, but I still love him going 2 for 4, and the stolen bases are nice too. He needs to be a little bit more aggressive, I think, at the plate. But I do really like that he has performed with the hard hit stuff a lot better. And I don't know. I just like that I know that they were showing in the Sunday night game, like just him in the batting cage. I think he's got to get better than this, right? At some point. But the Padres win this one eventually 3-1 behind Matt Waldron and a great bullpen performance. Elite bullpen performance, and that's what's worth talking about here. Matt Waldron, first of all, though, he goes 5 2/3 with 1 earned run on 5 hits, 2 walks, and 10 strikeouts. This is the thing. Matt Waldron all year, this has been his story, right? The story with Matt Waldron has been if the knuckleball is working, he can do pretty damn good, right? Like he can do some damage. The problem is that we never know when that's gonna happen, and sometimes it's really inconsistent and he gets lit up like the D-back series. But as I talked about, and someone actually tweeted about me multiple times about this, at Padres fan _fan 67 was like, dude has a 5.49 ERA. That is not decent. I saw you, mister. You were tweeting at me after he gave up 1 run to start the game, and you were like, he stinks. Look, my thing on Waldron is that knuckleball when it's on is great, and guys, he's a 5 starter. I'm just not freaking out about this. I know the 5 ERA isn't great, but when you actually look at the games, 7 earned runs, he had a bad start against the Blue Jays as well. But other than that, he's been like up and down, and I think that the stuff is actually pretty decent. That knuckleball was vicious. 6 whiffs on that thing. Even when pitching Ninja was tweeting about this thing, man. So he was really dynamite for a lot of this game, and he loved to see that. But, folks, that wasn't the only thing. It wasn't just Matt Waldron, and I think that this is such a good development, especially how they've looked lately, is the bullpen. And we're going to talk about them in just 1 second, guys. But before we do that, I want to take a quick second to talk to you about more financial stuff. That's right. It's the Financial Nerdy Monday, folks. But this time, I'm here to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator, folks, a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. That sounds pretty good. I don't know about you guys. That sounds pretty good to me. Everyone's probably heard of LinkedIn by now, but with LinkedIn Sales Navigator, they've got the extra tools for you to be able to dive even deeper as an employer to get the people that you need. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as, job changes or which accounts you want to prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, guys, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's right. Just for listening to this podcast, we're giving you 2 months of free LinkedIn Sales Navigator, folks. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for that 60-day free trial. Let it help you sell like the superstar that you are. That's right. Go check it out, linkedin.com/lockedon to get started today. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we're in the waning moments of this here podcast. And guess what? Before we get into the questions, I just really want to quickly mention the bullpen in Friday's game. After Matt Waldron, right, delivers an excellent performance. I'm telling you, the guy's okay. Not great, but he ain't the problem, guys. It's been Musgrove and Michael King when it comes to the starting pitching, right? Those are the 2 that have been a problem. And by the way, Randy Vasquez has been too. The Padres do have a 5th starter problem in general where we don't know. But you know what I like about them this year? It's not like they need Waldron to be great. It's not like they need Randy. It's not like they need Brito. It's just, we got time. We'll figure it out. We've got options. I think that's kind of cool. But in this game, Yuki Matsui goes 2/3 of an inning. He walks 1, strikes out 2. Santos comes in to clean up that 1 walk. He goes 2/3 with a strikeout, no earned runs. Robert Suarez actually goes in the 8th inning, which I thought was fascinating. 1 inning, 2 hits, 2 strikeouts, no hits, no runs, no walks. I know that you see, oh my God, he gave up some hits. What happened here? I really love what Mike Shildt did here for two reasons. Number one, which was during the game, putting Suarez in this situation. You decided, you know what? They've got Albies, they've got Ozuna, they've got Olsen, and then 2 batters later is Michael Harris. And I know that those guys haven't been, all, aces this year, but I love that you decided I'm bringing in my closer. This is what I love when managers do this. It doesn't just have to be 9th inning, the end. We have to be up in order to use you. No, instead, use your best reliever when it's a tight game and say, you know what? I don't care if you're usually the 9th inning guy. I don't want to put Estrada against some of these guys. So let's bring you in now. I love, love, love when managers do that. The second reason I loved it, after the game, not so subtle shot at Josh Hader. It's not the second, I think that's like the third time I've seen this team take a shot at Josh Hader. I think it was 2 from Mike Shildt, who's really spicy, by the way. At the very minimum, we could argue about if he's a good manager. At the very minimum, I respect that. He's a spicy man, whether it be at the media or clearly at some other players. So I will say one thing. There's been a lot of hubbub. What is the locker room situation with the Padres? It's rare that it seems like this one was like, no, like this guy we really didn't like. For you to keep calling him out, basically Mike Shildt was like, it's nice to have a guy who won't just go in the 9th and he'll go in the 8th inning, just praising Suarez. I'm telling you guys. But I really love I just love that decision. I think it's awesome. I love that you said, you know what? Let's not put the kid in a super high leverage situation against some of the best bats in the league. And by the way, even Suarez struggles for a little bit. Ozuna gets a single and Chadwick Tromp gets a double, and we're a little bit scared for a second. Then he gets Michael Harris to strike out. Then they bring in Jeremiah Estrada, who gets 3 strikeouts, looks absolutely untouchable. Untouchable Jeremiah Estrada. And he is one of the reasons why I'm not freaking out about this Padres bullpen, even when they were having some issues, because I just think there's so many options. I just mentioned earlier about an Alec Jacob. If they call him up, you've got Adam Mazer and Robbie Snelling in the minors in terms of some starting pitching. And I just think Wandy Peralta could be a little bit better. Santos and Matsui have regressed recently, but I don't think that means that they're bad now. I think that they might have just been on a bad stretch. They could get good again. You have Suarez and you have Estrada, who increases the upside of this bullpen tenfold. So really love to see that. Great wins for the Padres, but man, Mike Shildt might have won me over with that one game. But folks, it's the Monday pod, which means we got to answer some of your questions and comments, and you guys did leave me some. And I really appreciate that, guys. I really do. It's really nice when you leave me comments, when you DM me, make me feel loved. You actually care about what I have to say, which is very weird. Y'all are some freaks. I have to admit for that, though. I have to admit. But guys, let's talk about it really quickly. Let's get into the first question. This one coming from my man at Kaz_tatdog on Twitter. He's been listening to the podcast and talking on a while for on Twitter. Shouts to you, my friend. He says, do you think we will sign Profar for next year? Because I love him, all around great guy. By the way, love the podcast. Go Padres. Go Padres to you too, sure, Kaz. I mentioned this earlier. I am fascinated to see if you guys thought the Cody Bellinger thing was weird. Right? And what I mean by that is basically Cody Bellinger, MVP, Rookie of the Year, then goes through a 3 stretch where in terms of hitting, quite literally the worst. I think it was like him, Grisham, and one other guy that I'm blanking on. Like in terms of like all the big stats that matter, just could not hit anymore. Then goes to the Cubs for 1 year. All of a sudden he can hit, and he's like fueling that team and helping them a lot, but people don't want to pay him because they're like, well, we don't know which version of you is real. Jurickson Profar is that, but like on steroids. I think that it's possible because he seems to love the Padres so much that he might be more inclined to stay with the Padres. And if he is, that would be great. He's still a little bit of a minus defensively, right? But what's so fascinating about his season is that he's kind of rendered that like completely a moot point, like inert. Like it doesn't matter. He currently leads the damn team in WAR. Like it's insane. Jurickson Profar on the year has a 1.8 F4. If you go by Fangraphs, he's got a 170 WRC plus. And by the way, it's not like he's getting unbelievably lucky. Now, don't get me wrong, it's going to go down. It has to go down at some point. I refuse to believe that he's going to hit 325, 412, 510 with a 170 WRC plus for the rest of the season. This is a guy who's never had a WRC plus above 113, right? So that would be insane. But I will say, in terms of weighted on base, it's at 400 right now. Expected weighted on base of 369. I think he might have figured out something with hitting fastballs better. And I think that he's walking a lot more than he has. But he's walked before, so that part's legit. He's had a 12.9% walk rate before. Like, he does have good plate discipline skills. In fact, one of his seasons with the Padres, 11.9% walk rate. That's what he's always been good at, is putting together good at bats, but he's just killing fastballs now. I don't know. I would love to see them sign him. Purely, I would have liked to see them sign him if he was just what he was 2 years ago with the Padres, like a solid, like, 2.5 win player. I would have loved that. Absolutely would have loved that, because the vibes, especially, like, clearly there's something more with this guy. He was even on the Eric Hosmer podcast from those few weeks ago with the whole mucho stress thing with Ha-Seong Kim. Like, clearly these guys like him. But I do want to see what's going to happen, because if he keeps hitting like this, or even somewhat like this, if this guy finishes with a 140 WRC plus, so let's say it drops by 30 points, that's still an unbelievable year. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I need to wait a bit longer, but of course I want to re-sign him. And I will say it's a deep free agent class, or at least a deeper, in theory, free agent class this summer. And I'm curious to see what they do. And I think that second half, if they call up a Robbie Snelling, depending on what happens with Musgrove, might dictate what they do in free agency, because there's a lot of pitchers that are in free agency this year, like your Max Fried, who the Padres faced on Friday, like your Walker Buehler of the Dodgers. I know he's a Dodger, but still, like, there's a lot of good pitchers on the market. So I think it depends on some of the rest of the guys on this team, how they perform and what the Padres choose to prioritize. But in general, I don't think it'll be that crazy. He's probably going to want to re-sign here, and I don't think a team's going to be like, cool, he's a $200 million player now. I don't think that's going to happen, because they didn't do it with Bellinger, who literally has won an MVP before. So I don't know. But I'd love to keep him. And he's not too old, at just 31 years old. So it's possible that you can sign him for more than just 1 year flyers and stuff like that. But of course, we're not done, ladies and gentlemen. The next question from my guy, Ha-Seong, the Australian homie. He said, hey, thoughts on righty-lefty lineup? I understand you want to be righty heavy when there's a southpaw on the mound, but when the best players are left-handed, what do you do? He also said, give me a wink in the YouTube video. So, hold on. I'm not really good at winks, so there you go. I'm so bad at winks. But it's a great question. I think that the Padres, when it comes to these situations, this was one of the things that happened heading into the year, where you only had Cronenworth as your lone lefty. Now you've got Merrill, obviously, which rules. You've got Arise, that rules. But I think it depends. I think that you just need to order the lineup in the right way. It's a little bit out of whack, because Manny and Xander have been so bad that they've been moving down and down. Like, Manny hit 5th yesterday, which is like the first time I've seen him do that in a while. Like, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like I haven't seen him hit. I've seen him hit 3rd, but 5th? I don't know. It's been a while since he's done that. So I want to see how those guys perform. But for me, I just want to have a diverse lineup, in the sense that I don't want it to be all righties, one lefty in the middle, and that's it. I like what they've been doing with the lineup this year, where you have a Merrill at the bottom of the lineup who is a lefty, right, who can break up a little of the monotony. And in general, I don't think the splits have been too bad for the Padres this year versus pitchers. And I do like that they have guys that you can mix and match, right? Like, I love that if they need to every now and then, Tyler Wade can be a pinch run replacement, whatever. And then you've got Donovan Solano, who can absolutely kill in that regard. And then you've got Arise, who kills righties too. So I think that what's cool about this team is, assuming Machado and Bogaerts get a little bit better, I think that they have enough depth with some minor league guys too that they might maybe at some point call up, who knows. But like a Graham Pauley type. And then they've also got your Merrill. You've got Cronin, who's been awesome. And yes, I remember, y'all. Just want to say, for everybody who gets on me, remember, everybody hated that Cronenworth was batting 3rd. And he's been like the best player next to Profar this year. So I do think that they're okay with their righty-lefty matchups as of right now. Especially because of the Arise and Donovan Solano acquisitions. I think they'll be okay. I think it all just depends what way you organize that lineup. Because I don't want it to be all righties. Even if it's matchup, it's good for the matchup. I just don't like having that monotony there, because then managers on the opposing team can easily bring in specialists who can just carve up those righties if they're all back to back to back to back, which is why Cronenworth and your Merrill and your Rise Solano thing is so important. Hopefully that answered your question. Hopefully. Next question, though, comes from @GrantJordan on Twitter. For the mailbag, how would you feel about the Padres extending Matt Waldron? While he's been erratic as a rookie, his stuff, with some help from Chief Niebla, could be electric. Personally, I'd love to see them offer something in the neighborhood of 5 years for $25 million-ish, but I'd love to know what you think. First of all, shouts to my man Grant. He sent this before the Waldron start, or at least in the middle of it. Maybe it was like 1 inning or so that was into it. But he said this to me at like 8 o'clock, so the full game hadn't been done yet. So my man had the vision. You know what I mean? He was ready. He was like, I believe in Matt Waldron. I am very against extending like anyone for more than like I just want to make it to the offseason first before we talk about extensions. And that goes for players who look amazing. I'm talking about Jackson Merrill. I don't want to extend him. Not yet. Let me wait a little bit. But my thing is, hey, Jake Cronenworth looked really good, and then they extended him, and now he's been back. But he had 2 years where his offense had been going downwards. So for me, I just think that this team, I don't want it so locked in because its core and its overall winning results haven't always been there. And I don't mean in terms of their max. Like, they made the NLCS. I get that. They've had some good playoff runs. I'm saying, like, the win column. They haven't been super consistent there, so I don't want to lock up everything and make it that you don't really have any wiggle room for more trade acquisitions, for maybe some free agency signings, those 1-year kind of deals. Just get this guy, hey, he'll be on the team 1 year, and then we could get another guy next year. I kind of want to have some stuff like that. So in terms of Matt Waldron especially, I'm not interested in extending him so far. You got him under control. He's not too old. So let's see how it works out a little bit longer, and then maybe we could talk extension. But as of right now, I don't think Waldron has produced value that you can't find elsewhere, whether it be on a 1-year whatever type of signing, or more importantly, some guys from the minors, right? Like especially the top prospects for the Padres. You don't want to lock in Waldron when Snelling could come up or Lesko next year and just be awesome. And then you're like, yeah, I want to start those guys, right? So we'll see how it pans out. But for now, I would not do that. If Musgrove falls apart, if, those guys fall apart, if they lose Cease next year, something like that, then we can talk. But for now, I would not do that. But let me continue up, guys. Two more questions. 2 more comments. One comment from YouTube from @mankid3894. Do you think a couple years later they will trade away Merrill Campy because the budgets have been stuck in Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, and Tatis Jr.'s contracts? No. I think that if you have those bad contracts, you're not going to trade the guys who are giving you some salary relief in that regard. And I stand by my belief that I don't think the Padres are going back to what they used to be. I just think that they needed a temporary reset for the luxury tax threshold, and because frankly I thought it was a bad free agency class. So I would not do that. Campuzano I could see getting traded though at some point, because they have Ethan Salas, one of the best prospects in baseball, who's like 18 years old, and he's a catcher. He's the one I could see getting traded at some point, but not yet, for sure. And he's been really good. He's been really productive. He's swinging it. And who was the one that told y'all he was gonna? Yeah, I told you guys, the Campuzano hive, man. I'm telling you, we're too powerful. We're too powerful. But yeah, I don't see that happening whatsoever. I think that would what would have to happen is the Padres fundamentally would just have to go completely backwards on their salary and just decide we're cheap again. We're the A's again. I don't think that's gonna happen. I really don't. At least not initially, because at the very minimum, they're seeing we're getting a lot of national games. They just had one yesterday. They had the ones against the Dodgers, and we're like second or third in attendance like every year. So I don't think they're going to do that right now because they could lose all that goodwill immediately. So we'll see, but no, I don't see them trading those guys, especially Merrill. Last question comes from @little_Ted74, Billy Friendo, which, by the way, I hope that's how I say your last name, because if it is, I love it. I love Friendo. I say that all the time to my friends. Hello, Friendo. He says, hey, from Sydney, Australia. Wow. Crazy, small world, crazy stuff, guys. Javi, I'm baffled by our poor home record the past couple of seasons, but away record amongst the best in the league. Any thoughts or ideas why? I think there's a couple things. I think number one would be it's a more pitcher-friendly ballpark. I think that's part of it. The offense doesn't produce quite as much. This has been an offense that has struggled in the clutch no matter what, especially last year. And I think that it's hard to hit there. And I think the other thing could be it's just that there's a lot of pressure on these guys, and for whatever reason, it's not gelling all the time, so they shrink when the lights shine bright. You know what I mean? They're Jason Tatum. They're James Harden. They're the Dallas Cowboys, right? Like they can be that sometimes. And I think I want to end on that and say, while they did have a good two-set start to this series, even if they win the rest of this series, even if they just win one of the 2 games from today/tomorrow, they're not like out of the woods yet. They're still just at 500, which is really explains their season. Then they've got the Reds, which should be an easy series. And then Soto comes back to town. So, guys, it is far from over this season, let me tell you. I can't wait for that series, by the way, for Memorial Day weekend. I think that's going to be a blast. I'm going to be with my friends on a porch somewhere, you know what I mean? Eating an apple, whatever the heck I'm going to be doing. Are apples Memorial Day? Not really, right? No, probably not. But whatever, you get my point. Really looking forward to that. But in general, that's how I feel. I think that overall, it's just something has to be happening with the vibe of this team that they just don't seem to play well at home. At some point, that should have a regression to the mean, but I don't know for sure, man. I don't really have a full great explanation for that. It could be that some of the power hitters don't play well to that ballpark. I think of guys like Ha-Seong Kim, who's tinkered his swing more to hit more, to pull more of his balls in the air. Especially last year, you saw that. He hasn't been doing that as much this year. Although he did do it yesterday, pulled one fly ball left field. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the guys just aren't conducive to Petco, which is one of the things that's cool about Arise, that he's that's irrelevant to his skill set. So, but anyway, that's what I think. It's a great question though, man. But that's the best I got. Hitter, it's not friendly to hitters. And also, this team just seems to shrink a little bit when they want to get going. Until the playoffs. If they're in the playoffs, then they might show up, but we'll have to see. But ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking a lot. It's been a chunky podcast for sure, as always on Mondays. Feel free to send me more of your questions at Javapeno and send them on the comments on YouTube. My buddy Hope Springs Eternal. I know you're a big fan of the show. Keep sending your comments. Whatever it is can make the show. Tomorrow's episode, we're going to be recapping both games. That'll be a lot of fun. So plenty of meat to talk about for tomorrow's episode. We also have this week, we have a crossover planned with Stacey Gotsulias of Locked On Yankees. That should be fun for this Memorial Day weekend series. And hopefully some good vibes. I hope, maybe. Do they get to above 500 for once? Maybe? A little bit, hopefully? I don't know. We'll have to see. But until next time, stay safe. And of course, stay faithful. My faithful homies, take care.